Laugh. That cufflink isn't yours. The waitress whispered to the mafia boss. Why would a waitress notice something so small about a mafia boss? And why would she risk whispering it directly to him? Laugh? I whispered, because if Dante Moretti stopped smiling, someone in that ballroom would know I had just seen what they had missed. I leaned across his right shoulder as though I were clearing his dinner plate, keeping my face neutral while 40 guests talked beneath the amber chandeliers of the Bellwether Hotel. That cufflink isn't yours. For half a second, nothing happened. Then Dante laughed. Not the polite sound wealthy men made when donors told bad jokes, but convincing enough that the silver-haired man beside him smiled too. My name is Mara Ellison. I was 26, working the Bellwether evening shift because Celeste had called me 3 hours earlier and offered time and a half when another server got sick. Mara, Celeste intercepted me near the champagne station. Table 9 needs clearing. Got it. And Moretti's table? Fine. You look pale. Long shift. It was easier than explaining that I had just told Dante Moretti someone had switched the jewelry on his wrist. I knew the cufflink wasn't his because I had served him once before, 6 nights earlier. Most guests watched Dante's face. Hands reached for glasses before arguments. Hands tightened when people lied. Hands left rings beside sinks and phones beneath napkins. Dante Moretti's cufflinks had been black onyx framed in silver, each marked with a tiny M visible only when his wrist turned toward the light. Tonight, his right cufflink was exactly the same. His left looked almost identical. "Excuse me," a woman murmured without looking at me. That was when laughter rose behind me again. I let my eyes travel across the ballroom as if searching for empty glasses. Security positioned near both exits. 3 tables behind Dante, a man in a charcoal gray suit had stopped with his fork halfway to his mouth. He reached inside his jacket, pulled out his phone, glanced at the screen, and relaxed. Across the ballroom, Dante turned his whiskey glass once between his fingers, but his left wrist shifted beneath the tablecloth, just enough for him to inspect the cufflink without appearing to do so. As I filled the glass of the guest beside him, I let my eyes flick once toward the 3rd table behind his chair. I should have finished my shift, collected my tips, and gone home. Instead, as I turned away, I saw the man in gray rise from his chair. And this time, he was looking directly at me. The man in the gray suit took one step toward me, and Dante Moretti laughed again. That sound stopped me more effectively than a shouted warning could have. I kept walking. Just another waitress carrying dirty plates toward the service corridor while wealthy strangers discussed foundations, property deals, and donations large enough to change my life. Behind me, chairs shifted softly against carpet. The music became muffled immediately. Stainless steel carts lined one wall. Someone had abandoned a tray of untouched desserts beneath the fluorescent lights. I had made it 6 feet when a voice behind me said, "Miss Ellison." The man in gray could not possibly know my name. Nolan Price, Dante's security chief, stood beside the ballroom door. "Mr. Moretti would like a word." "I am working." Nolan glanced at the plates in my hands. He noticed. I should have refused. Instead, I followed him through a second door into a private service room used for storing linens and extra glassware. Dante was alone. His expression was calm. Only his eyes had changed. "Close the door, Nolan." The door clicked shut behind me. Dante held up his left wrist. "Explain." "Your cufflinks matched when you arrived." "You saw me arrive?" "I served champagne near the entrance." "And you memorized my jewelry?" "No, I noticed it." "There is a difference." "A big one." Dante studied me the way people studied contracts before signing them. "Tell me." "Black onyx. Small letter M near the hinge." Dante examined it. "This one does not have it." "I know." "How?" "Because people like me are paid to notice what people like you need before you ask." Something almost amused passed through his face. "People like me?" "People who never have to wonder whether anyone is watching them." "Everyone watches me." "Exactly. They watch your face. Nobody watches the things you leave beside a dinner plate." Then he asked, "Who was watching my wrist?" "Gray suit." "Victor Sloane's table." I did not know who Victor Sloane was, and apparently my face admitted it. "That means nothing to you." "Should it?" "Probably healthier that it does not." The door opened, and Nolan entered carrying a small black case. "We have a problem." He placed the case on the table and pulled on a pair of gloves. "Do not remove it," I said. Both men looked at me. My cheeks warmed, but I continued. The man in gray checked his phone after Dante looked at the cufflink. "You are certain?" He was tense until he checked the screen. Dante lowered his wrist before Nolan could touch it. "If it is transmitting something," I said, "taking it off might tell whoever put it there that you found it." The silence lasted 3 heartbeats. "Scan it where it is," Dante said. Nolan removed a compact device from the case and moved it slowly around Dante's wrist without touching the cufflink. "There is an active signal," he said quietly. The room suddenly felt smaller. Dante stared at the piece of black metal attached to his sleeve. Someone had gotten close enough to replace something on his body without his knowledge. Someone inside a room guarded by his own people. "Who had access to you tonight?" "Too many. We should move you." "No, Dante. If I leave now, whoever did this knows we discovered it." "We go back," Dante said. Nolan looked at me. "What about her?" Dante asked me. "Do you want to leave?" "Would I actually be allowed to?" "Yes." "Then I am staying until I know what I saw." "All right. Stay where I can see you," he said. "I am not one of your employees." "I know. That is why I asked." At the far end of the room, beside the kitchen entrance, stood a waiter I had never seen before. He was holding a tray with 1 glass of whiskey on it, and he was walking straight toward Dante's table. The waiter was 20 feet from Dante when I realized what bothered me. He was carrying the whiskey with his left hand. At the Bellwether, we served from the right whenever the table arrangement allowed it. Celeste drilled that rule into every new hire because private events were built on invisible details, and wealthy guests complained about details ordinary people never noticed. But that was not all. His jacket was wrong. Bellwether catering jackets had narrow satin lapels and 3 covered buttons. Close enough from across a ballroom. Wrong if you wore the uniform every week. One shorter step, then another. I felt that familiar tightening in my chest, the same instinct that used to wake me before my father called from the next room. "I can take that," I said when we met near the center aisle. "I have it." Table 4 requested it. Table 4 is champagne service. His eyes held mine for half a second too long. "Special request." Behind him, Dante was speaking to a woman in a navy evening gown. He looked completely relaxed, but I saw his thumb touch the edge of his altered cufflink. Instead, I smiled at the waiter. "Celeste changed the floor assignments 10 minutes ago. All liquor goes through me." His fingers tightened around the tray. "Nobody told me." "Then you should talk to her." I reached for the glass. It struck the carpeted floor with a flat metallic crash that cut through the quartet and turned half the room toward us. "I am so sorry," I said loudly. "Mara, my fault." When I looked up, the waiter was already moving toward the service entrance. Without the whiskey, the glass sat abandoned on a side table. Nolan crossed the ballroom from the opposite direction, never once looking at me. The waiter kept moving, but his eyes followed Nolan for a second. I gave the smallest shake of my head toward the glass. 5 minutes later, Celeste sent me to the private corridor with an expression that suggested I had personally offended the hospitality industry. "Mr. Moretti requested you," she whispered. "Again." I noticed. "Mara, what is happening?" "I wish I knew." Dante stood beside the linen room when I arrived. Nolan was inside with the abandoned whiskey. "You recognized him?" "No, that concerns me." "It should. He does not work here." "How do you know?" "Wrong jacket." He did not know table 4 was champagne service. "You lied about the floor assignments." "Yes." "Without knowing what was in that glass." "I did not need to know." A real Bellwether server would have complained about Celeste changing assignments without telling anyone. He just wanted to get past me. Nolan stepped into the hallway. "We are having the glass checked. Security cannot locate the server." Dante looked toward the ballroom. "And the man in gray?" "Still seated." "Victor has known my family for 22 years. Maybe Reed was only watching you," I said. "Maybe. You do that often?" "Do what?" "Notice things everyone else misses." "My father was sick for a long time," I said. "Some days he would tell me he was fine because he did not want me worrying. After enough years, noticing stops being something you do." "Your father?" "He died 18 months ago." "I am sorry." Before I could answer, Nolan's phone vibrated. He read the message, and his expression changed. Dante, what? The scan on the cufflink is not tracking your location. Then what is it doing? Nolan turned the phone so he could see the report. It is listening. Dante stared at the cufflink, then toward the ballroom where 40 guests had spent the evening talking within yards of him. How long? We cannot tell yet. Mara, think carefully. Before you noticed the cufflink, did anyone come unusually close to me? My stomach dropped. Yes, I whispered. And I know where he went. He went through the staff elevator, I said, and Dante's attention sharpened so completely that I wished I could pull the words back. Nolan reached for his phone, but Dante lifted one hand. Tell me exactly what you remember. Dante sitting beneath the chandelier while guests rotated around him as if he were the fixed point of the room. It was during the second course, I said. About 40 minutes ago. The same man with the whiskey? No. Older. He bumped the back of Dante's chair. I remember that. You turned because someone at the table said your name. The server apologized and brushed something from your sleeve. I thought he had spilled something. Which direction did he go? Toward the west service elevator. That elevator requires staff access. Yes. Then somebody gave him access. Dante looked toward the ballroom doors. Or somebody inside the hotel is helping them. The sentence settled between us. This was no longer one strange cufflink or one unfamiliar waiter. Someone had entered a controlled event, moved through employee areas, gotten close enough to Dante to replace something attached to his clothing, and walked away unnoticed. Stay here, Nolan said. I will check the elevator records. He disappeared down the corridor. Dante and I were left beneath the cold fluorescent lights. It was strange how different he looked there. In the ballroom, everything around him reinforced what he was. Security, expensive whiskey, powerful people waiting for his attention. Here, beside shelves stacked with folded tablecloths, he was simply a man wearing something another person had secretly placed on him. You should go back, I said. So should you. I work here. Tonight, apparently, that is more dangerous than sitting at my table. You are afraid. I am being practical. Your hands are shaking. That does not mean I am leaving. Why not? The question irritated me more than it should have. Because whoever did this saw me speak to you. The man in gray looked directly at me. Walking outside alone does not magically make me uninvolved. Dante considered that without interrupting. And because, I continued, I want to know whether I was right. About what? That something is wrong. His gaze dropped to the cufflink. You were right. About the whole room. Before he could answer, Nolan returned. He held a tablet in one hand. We pulled the service elevator lock. A staff card accessed the west elevator 6 minutes after the second course. Whose card? Celeste Ward. No, you know her. She has managed events here for 9 years. She called me in tonight. She knows every employee on this floor. Which also means she could identify someone who does not belong, Dante said. Or help someone get inside, Nolan added. She would not. Nolan gave me a measured look. People disappoint us every day, Miss Ellison. Then check the cameras before deciding she did. Do it. There is another problem. Reed Halpern left the ballroom 3 minutes ago. Which exit? None. Nolan turned the tablet toward us. He entered the west service corridor. The same corridor the first man had used. Dante looked toward the ballroom, calculating. Do not follow him yet. You want him moving freely? I want him believing we have noticed nothing. Can you return to the room and behave normally? Can you? I have had practice. Mara, when we go inside, do not look for Reed. Why? Because if he is watching you, he will notice. Then what am I supposed to look at? Me. What are you doing? Giving 40 people a reason to believe your whisper meant something completely different. You want me to dance with you? I am asking. Smile, he murmured. They are watching. Everyone. No, he said. One person is not. Who? Graham Voss. Where is he? Dante's gaze fixed on an empty chair near his table. That is the problem, he whispered. He was sitting there 30 seconds ago. Do not look at his chair again, Dante murmured, and the calmness in his voice frightened me more than panic would have. I kept my eyes on him while we moved beneath the chandelier, surrounded by people who had no idea the evening had changed. How long have you known Graham? Since I was 14. That is not an answer that makes me feel better. It was not meant to. Dante guided me through a slow turn. Around us, couples began joining the dance floor, which was exactly what he wanted. More reasons for someone watching us to lose track of where his security team was going. Nolan passed near the bar without acknowledging us. Two other men quietly separated toward opposite corridors. Graham advised my father, Dante said. After my father died, he stayed with me. So you trust him? I did not say that. You did not have to. The possibility that a familiar face could become unfamiliar in a single moment. My father had taught me that people could love you and still hide things because they believed silence was protection. What did Graham know about tonight? Everything. Guest list? Yes. Security? Most of it. Your schedule? Yes. Then whoever planned this did not need to get around your security. They only needed to understand it. The music carried us another few feet. His left wrist remained visible, the false cufflink catching amber light every time he moved. Somewhere nearby, someone might still be listening through it. If that thing can hear us, why are we talking? The music is covering most of it. Most. I am choosing my words carefully. That must be difficult for you. You have known me 20 minutes. Long enough to notice. There it was again, that nearly invisible change at the corner of his mouth. Then his attention shifted over my shoulder. Reed is back. Where? Near the terrace. Looking at us? No, Dante's hand became still against mine. My whiskey. The unfamiliar waiter had disappeared, but the abandoned glass had not. Someone had moved it from the side table. It now sat at Dante's place, setting as if it had always belonged there. Do not drink it, I whispered. That was already my plan. Good. Applause moved through the ballroom. Dante released my hand immediately, giving me space before anyone could mistake the performance for permission. Thank you for the dance, Miss Ellison, he said at normal volume. Of course, Mr. Moretti. Let them invent a harmless explanation. For the next 10 minutes, nothing happened. I answered a question about coffee. Every ordinary movement felt sharpened. Then I saw Graham Voss emerge from the west corridor. He was in his early 60s, silver-haired, composed, dressed in a midnight blue tuxedo. He did not look like someone fleeing anything. He walked directly to Dante, bent close, and said something I could not hear. Graham touched his shoulder with the casual familiarity of family. Maybe I had been wrong. Miss Ellison, he said when I approached with the coffee service. Dante tells me you have been unusually observant tonight. Coffee? I asked. Please. Cream. Black. You must see everything in a job like yours. Mostly empty glasses. I imagine people forget you are listening. Graham. Yes. Victor was asking for you. Was he? Terrace. Then I should not keep him waiting. You did not tell him about me. No, then how did he know? That, he said quietly, is what I intend to find out. Nolan approached with an evidence bag. Inside was a black onyx cufflink marked with a tiny M, Dante's real cufflink. Where did you find it? Dante asked. Laundry collection downstairs. Beneath the cufflink was a narrow strip of paper with 4 words printed in black ink. West Service Elevator. Dante read the message twice. It is an invitation, Nolan said. No, I whispered. I remembered the strange waiter. It is an instruction. And what do you think I will do? I looked at the clock again. 12 minutes now. Exactly what they expect. Then we do something they cannot predict, I said. Dante looked at the clock above the ballroom doors. 11:48. Such as, you stay here. Nolan actually laughed once, without humor. Dante did not. Someone went through considerable trouble to bring me to that elevator. Exactly. So stop behaving like the man they planned for. And what man is that? The one who walks toward a challenge because everyone expects him to. For a moment, I wondered if I had pushed too far. Then Dante glanced at the false cufflink on his wrist. Change the room. Explain. Servers moved along predictable routes between the kitchen, tables, bar, and service corridor. Every path had been planned before the first guest arrived. Whoever organized this knows your security patterns. Maybe they know the hotel patterns too. But they do not know mine because I was called in 3 hours ago. Dante understood before Nolan did. You want to alter the service routes. All of them. Close the west service elevator for a maintenance problem. Send the dessert carts through the east corridor. Move coffee service to the main bar. If someone is waiting for you downstairs, they either stay there or change position. If they change position, Nolan sees who reacts. We would need hotel management. Celeste can do it in 2 minutes. Celeste's access card was used, which is why we find out whether she knows. Dante looked at me for several silent seconds. Do it. We found Celeste near the kitchen doors counting champagne glasses. When I told her the west elevator needed to be closed, her face tightened. Why? Because Mr. Moretti requested it. Your access card was used on that elevator earlier tonight. Her hand immediately touched the lanyard at her waist. My card. I had it before dinner service. Who could have taken it? Anyone in the kitchen for 30 seconds. I left my jacket in the office during setup. I believed her, not because I knew she was innocent, but because she looked offended before she looked frightened. It was harder to fake the specific anger of a manager discovering someone had violated her system. Can you shut down the elevator? Yes. Do it without announcing why. At 11:52, a maintenance sign appeared outside the west elevator. At 11:54, dessert service changed direction. At 11:55, the coffee station moved. 40 guests complained about nothing because 40 guests noticed nothing. Reed Halpern checked his phone twice. Graham Voss left Victor Sloane's table and crossed toward the bar. And Victor himself stopped speaking in the middle of a sentence when he saw a dessert cart emerge from the wrong corridor. I was carrying coffee when Dante appeared beside me. You were right. About which one? All three noticed. Who moved first? Graham. Where did he go? Toward the kitchen. Then somebody is running out of time. Nolan's voice came quietly through Dante's earpiece. What? Someone just tried the west elevator from the 31st floor. Who? Nolan is checking. The ballroom suddenly felt too bright. Every polished glass seemed suddenly suspicious. Dante looked completely composed, but I could feel the tension beside him. You should stay here, he said. That sounds suspiciously like an order. It is a request. Better. I am still coming. No, you asked what I would do. And that does not make you responsible for what happens next. Then give me something useful to do. Watch Victor. And Graham. Do not let knowing him for 20 years make you ignore what you see tonight. That sounds like advice from experience. It is. Victor looked at his phone. At the far end, the east elevator indicator descended from 32 to 31. The west service elevator, the one Celeste had supposedly disabled, opened its doors. A black envelope lay inside with my name printed on it, Mara Ellison. Beneath it, in smaller letters, were 4 words that made the entire night suddenly feel personal. Your father kept records. Your father kept records. I read the words twice because the first time my mind refused to understand them. The elevator stood open in front of me, empty except for the black envelope resting on the floor. Behind me, the distant ballroom music sounded impossibly normal. I should have called Dante. Instead, I crouched and picked up the envelope by its edge. Whoever had left it knew exactly who I was. Inside was a photograph. It showed my father, Arthur Ellison, standing outside a brick office building I recognized from childhood. He looked younger, healthier, wearing the brown coat he had refused to replace even after one pocket tore. Beside him stood a man whose face had been circled in black ink, Victor Sloane. On the back were 3 words, ask about Bellwether. Mara. Dante's voice came from behind me. I spun around so quickly the photograph nearly slipped from my fingers. He stood at the corridor entrance with Nolan several steps behind him. What happened? I handed him the photograph. He studied it, and the silence that followed told me more than words could. You know him? Victor, yes. No. My father. I have seen his face before. Where? That is not good enough. My voice came out sharper than I intended. Someone knows my name. Someone left this for me inside an elevator that was supposed to be disabled. So please do not protect me with half an answer. He handed the photograph to Nolan. Run Arthur Ellison through every Moretti Foundation archive we have access to. Nolan nodded and stepped away with his phone. Foundation. My family funds several charitable organizations in the city. Victor too. He sits on 2 boards. The pieces did not fit, but they were beginning to touch. My father was an accountant. For whom? Different firms. Mostly non-profit audits near the end. I stared at the photograph. He never talked about clients. Did he ever mention my family? Never. Bellwether. We could barely afford dinner out. Why would he talk about this hotel? Dante glanced toward the elevator. Maybe Bellwether does not mean the hotel. Before I could ask, Nolan returned. We found Arthur. His tone was different now. He worked as an outside compliance accountant for the Moretti Community Trust 8 years ago. For how long? 11 months. Why did he leave? The file says voluntary resignation. My father never voluntarily left a paycheck in his life. Dante's eyes stayed on me. What happened around that time? My father coming home late. Bills stacked beside the refrigerator. His sudden insistence that I never open his desk drawer. Then one memory surfaced, so clearly I could smell burnt coffee. He changed. How? He started checking the lock twice at night. He stopped answering unknown numbers. Nolan and Dante exchanged a look. Do not do that. Do what? Have an entire conversation with your eyes while I am standing here. Your father may have discovered irregularities in the trust. Then why wait 8 years? Maybe whoever wants those records only recently learned he kept them. He died 18 months ago. I have his things, I whispered. Where? My apartment. 2 storage boxes in the hall closet. Nolan immediately reached for his phone. We need to secure the location. No, nobody goes into my apartment without me. Mara, Nolan began. No, it is her home. And somebody here already knows who she is. Which makes her choice more important, not less. Do you want to go there? The photograph. My father's tired face. Yes. Then we go together. We return to the ballroom, so I could collect my coat. Celeste met me near the service station. Mara, where have you been? Did you open it? Of course not. Inside was a photograph of me leaving my apartment. Another showed me at a grocery store. These were taken before tonight, I whispered. Nolan checked the final photograph. At least several days before. I had believed I became part of this because I noticed Dante's cufflink. I had been wrong. Someone had watched me before that night. I unfolded it with shaking fingers. The message contained only 6 words. We know what Arthur gave you. I never received anything from my father, I said, but the photographs in my hands made the words feel dangerously incomplete. Dante took the note without touching the pictures. His eyes moved across the 6 words once, then again. They believe you did. Then they are wrong. That does not make you safe. Nolan was already speaking quietly into his phone, arranging something I could not hear. I shoved the photographs back into the envelope. I am going home. Not alone. I did not ask for protection. I know. Then stop deciding things for me. Someone has been following you for days. And putting me behind locked doors fixes that. It keeps them from reaching you. It also keeps me wherever you decide I belong. The silence between us changed. Celeste suddenly became very interested in reorganizing glasses 20 feet away. That is not what I meant. Maybe not. But men with power rarely notice the difference between protecting someone and controlling them. He looked toward the lobby, then back at me. What do you want? The question surprised me enough that my anger lost momentum. I want to go to my apartment and look through my father's things myself. If I decide I am done after that, I walk away. Nolan started to object, but Dante stopped him with one glance. Agreed. 40 minutes later, Manhattan slid past the tinted windows of Dante's car. I sat beside him in the back seat, still wearing my black bellwether uniform beneath my coat. Nobody spoke for several blocks. I watched storefront lights smear across the glass and tried to understand how an ordinary extra shift had opened a door into my father's past. You really saw him before? Dante knew who I meant. Arthur. Yes. Where? My father's office, maybe. I was younger. You said you did not know. That irritated me because it was reasonable. My father hated people who pretended to know things. Then I might have liked him. He would have hated your suit. Dante looked down at the dark fabric. That seems unfair. Dante looked toward me, and for 1 second the entire night became quiet. Then Nolan said, We are here. My apartment building stood on a narrow street in Queens, 6 stories of aging brick and stubborn rent increases. Across the street, beneath a dead street light, sat a black sedan. Is that yours? Nolan looked through the windshield. No, do not get out. You promised. I promised you would choose whether to enter your home. I did not promise to ignore that car. Nolan checked something on his phone. No visible plate from this angle. After 30 seconds, it pulled away from the curb and disappeared around the corner. Dante watched until it was gone. Still want to go upstairs? More than before. We entered the building together. The hallway smelled like old paint and somebody's midnight toast. Everything looked exactly as I had left it. My apartment door was locked. Dante remained in the hallway until I turned around. You can come in. He stepped inside only then. Books stacked beside the radiator. My father's old ceramic coffee mug holding pens on the kitchen counter. 2 cardboard boxes sat beneath winter blankets. Maybe they are wrong, I said. Then I found my father's brown ledger. Someone removed pages. Recently, I do not know. I turned the ledger over. My father had repaired the spine himself with dark tape years ago. A tiny brass key fell into my palm. The note was not referring to the hotel, I whispered. It was referring to this. A key to what? On the back, in my father's handwriting, was a number. Dante looked at the key, then at me. Do you know what 317 means? And suddenly I understood why my father had kept the ledger where I would eventually find it. Yes, I whispered. Bellwether is not the hotel. I closed my fingers around the key. It is the name of the storage facility where my father kept his accounting archives. 317, I said, staring at the tiny brass key in my palm. Unit 317. Dante rose slowly. How far is the facility? About 15 minutes from here. It is 12:48. We should wait until morning. No, my answer came too quickly. Whoever sent those photographs already knows about my father. If they know about the storage unit too, morning might be too late. Mara decides. Then I recommend we do not arrive without checking the building first. That sounds reasonable, I said. 22 minutes later, we stopped across from Bellwether Storage, a 4-story brick building squeezed between an auto repair shop and a wholesale furniture warehouse in Long Island City. Nolan made a phone call, checked the entrance, then returned. Night manager says nobody has accessed 317 today. Does he know who rents it? Arthur Ellison. Account has been prepaid through next year. My father planned ahead. Dante watched me rather than the door. You do not have to do this tonight. Yes, I do. That is different from wanting to. I spent 18 months avoiding his boxes because opening them felt like admitting he was really gone. Somebody else does not get to turn that grief into leverage. We entered through the side office. The night manager barely looked at Dante until Nolan spoke quietly to him, and then suddenly every lock seemed easier to operate. Unit 317 was on the 3rd floor at the end of a hallway lined with identical green doors. My key fit. Want me to? No. Inside were metal shelves, 12 banker boxes, an old desk lamp, and my father's handwriting everywhere. The boxes contained audits and ledgers. At the back sat one gray document case labeled Community Trust. Ledgers, copies of invoices, donation reports. Nothing I understood at first glance. He picked up one sheet, read it, then another. These payments do not match. Meaning, the trust paid companies for community projects. Some of these companies should not exist. Shell vendors? Possibly. My father had written columns of dates and amounts, then circled the same name repeatedly. Victor Sloan, I whispered. Maybe. You know another V.S. connected to your foundation? No, at the bottom, my father had written one sentence. The numbers are designed to disappear. This is why they followed me. They think I have this. Dante looked around the unit. They were right. What? This is too easy. Easy? Someone followed me for days, put a listening device on you, stole Celeste's access card, and left photographs in my locker. Exactly. After all that, we arrive here and find Victor's initials written beside everything? Someone may want us to blame him. Then how do we know what is real? We stop reading what someone wanted us to find and start looking for what Arthur tried to hide. My father's words returned. Every box had neat block lettering except one. The label leaned slightly upward because my father had always tilted his handwriting when his wrist hurt. Old photographs. At the bottom was a sealed envelope with my name on it. Inside was not a letter, It was a bank deposit receipt dated 8 years earlier in a small plastic access card. Beneath it, my father had written, "If you ever need this, do not trust the names in the ledger." The access record bore 2 signatures, Victor Sloan and Graham Voss. "Dante." They were both involved, I whispered. Nolan's phone vibrated. "We have another problem." "What?" Nolan turned the phone toward us. The security team at my apartment had found nothing disturbed inside, but somebody had slipped another photograph beneath my door after we left. It showed the 3 of us entering Bellwether Storage 20 minutes earlier. On the back was a message. "You found what Arthur wanted you to find. Now ask Dante what his father knew." "What did your father know?" I asked. Dante did not answer immediately, and that silence told me the message had found the exact place it was meant to reach. The storage room suddenly felt colder. Nolan stood near the door with his phone in one hand, while I held Arthur's records between us like evidence from 2 different lives colliding. "Dante." His eyes remained on the photograph. "My father died 6 years ago." That was not my question. "I know." He pulled out the folding chair across from me and sat, something I had never seen him do when uncertainty entered a room. "My father, Salvatore Moretti, created the community trust 24 years ago. Whatever else people believed about him, the trust mattered to him. He kept that money separate from everything else." "And Victor?" "Joined the board 11 years ago. Graham, earlier." "So both men had access?" "Yes." "Did your father know money was disappearing?" Dante stared at the legal pad. 3 months before he died, he ordered a private audit. "Arthur's audit?" "Possibly. You never thought that was important to mention?" "I did not know your father conducted it until tonight." "The audit disappeared. Graham told me there had been accounting errors, but no theft." "And you believed him?" "He had been beside my father for most of my life." "That is not evidence." "No, it is trust. The safe deposit box may settle this." I looked at the plastic access card. "At 1:30 in the morning?" "Private banking office," Dante said. "Not tonight. You could probably make one phone call." "I could. But your father left that access to you." "I am not turning his instructions into something I can purchase." It was such an unexpected answer that I had nothing ready for it. We packed only the documents connected to the trust and left everything else exactly where Arthur had placed it. Outside, the street was empty. The black sedan was gone. Nolan arranged for copies of the records to be secured separately. Once we were back in Dante's car, I expected him to choose our destination. Instead, Dante asked, "Where do you want to go?" "Home." "That location is compromised." "Then somewhere I can leave whenever I want." The Moretti Foundation has a guest apartment above its Midtown offices. It has a private entrance and no locked floor. "Security?" "Downstairs. Inside, only if you request it." "You are learning quickly." "I have an unusually demanding teacher." "Why did you not tell me your father ordered an audit sooner?" "Because until your father's name appeared, I did not know the 2 things were connected. And now I think someone has spent 8 years making sure nobody connects them." I looked at Arthur's handwriting. "He knew." "Yes. And he said nothing to me." "Maybe silence was the only way he knew to keep you outside it. People keep saying that like protection makes secrecy hurt less. It does not. Your father kept things from you too. Many things. Including this?" "Apparently." I thought about the message. "Ask Dante what his father knew." "Someone wants me to stop trusting you," I said. "You should not trust me simply because they want otherwise. That is a very strange argument for yourself. Trust should survive questions, Mara. Otherwise it is obedience." Before I could answer, Dante put the phone on speaker. "I found the bank record," Nolan said. "Arthur's safe deposit box is still active. The appointment is set for 9. Anything else?" "Yes. I checked the original authorization documents for the community trust audit. And Arthur Ellison was not hired by Salvatore Moretti." "Who hired him?" "Graham Voss." "That does not make sense." "There is more. Arthur submitted a preliminary report 6 weeks later. Only 3 people received it. My father, Graham, and Victor? No. Salvatore Moretti never received it." "Who did?" "Graham Voss, Victor Sloan, and Arthur Ellison." "So Dante's father may never have known." "Correct," Nolan said. "But somebody did." I found a fourth access entry added manually the following morning. Whose credentials? Yours, Dante, Nolan said. I was 26, Dante replied. I never saw that report. That was the problem. Because if Dante had never opened Arthur's report, then somebody had used his identity 8 years ago. And whoever had done it was still close enough tonight to know exactly where we were. Someone used your name 8 years ago, I said, and Dante looked as though the sentence had reached farther into his past than he wanted me to see. Nolan was still on speaker. Can you tell where the access came from? The archive only shows credentials. Your executive code, your authorization level, your timestamp. What time? 2:17 in the morning. Maybe you were not, I said. Then somebody had my credentials. He paced once toward the window. Manhattan glowed below us, indifferent and sleepless. 8 years ago, only 3 people could have obtained that code without triggering a security review. My father, Graham, and me. Victor. No, do not decide before the evidence does. You are defending him. I am refusing to become predictable. At the hotel, I had told him whoever planned the night believed they knew exactly how he would react. What about Victor? Victor's signature appears on the transfers, but several approvals were processed remotely. We cannot establish who physically submitted them. Then tomorrow we open the box, I said. 9 in the morning, Dante replied. Until then, we wait. At 2:15, I sat at the dining table reading Arthur's notes while Dante worked across from me. Coffee replaced whiskey. His jacket hung over a chair. Without the ballroom around him, the details became easier to see. He rubbed his thumb across his left wrist every few minutes, exactly where the false cufflink had been. You keep checking it, I said. Checking what? Your wrist. Habit. No, you did not do it before tonight. You noticed too much. You keep saying that like it is a complaint. I have not decided what it is. I looked back at the ledger. A payment approved by Victor and Graham had been reversed 48 hours later, then rerouted under another project. Beside it, Arthur had written, GV. Afraid. Dante. What if Graham was involved? But he was not running it. Afraid of what? Or whom? His phone rang before he could answer. We both stared at the screen. 2:31 in the morning. Dante answered and put the call on speaker. Where are you? Why? Because Victor knows about the storage unit. Every muscle in my body tightened. How? Because he has known about Arthur for 8 years. And you did not think to mention that. I made mistakes. That is a convenient word. I signed transfers I should have questioned. Victor told me the money was being temporarily redirected to protect the trust during an investigation. By the time I understood, my name was already on everything. You used my credentials. Once. To access Arthur's report? Yes. Victor wanted to know what Arthur had found before Salvatore saw it. I told myself I was protecting your father from a scandal until I could fix it. Did you? No. Arthur realized what we had done. He made copies and left the trust before Victor found where he hid them. My father spent years looking over his shoulder because of you. Mara, answer me. Yes. The honesty hurt more than denial would have. Why is Victor watching me now? Because he learned last month that Arthur maintained a safe deposit box. What is inside? We have not opened it. Then listen carefully. Do not open it with anyone connected to the Moretti organization present. Dante's expression hardened. Including me? Especially you. If the documents disappear while Dante is present, Victor gets exactly what he wants. Which is a story where Dante discovered evidence against his family and destroyed it. Dante leaned closer to the phone. Where are you? Somewhere Victor cannot easily reach me. That is not an answer. It is the only one I can give tonight. Graham. Dante, I failed your father. Victor is choosing who gets blamed. The call ended. Then a message appeared on my phone from an unknown number. A photograph of the bank entrance loaded slowly, captioned, 9 in the morning is too late. They know the appointment time. Only 3 of us knew. And the bank, he said. I arranged it through a private contact. Then we have another leak. Dante stared at the photograph. Or someone never needed to hear our plans. He reached for Arthur's ledger and opened it to the final page. My father left a second instruction. Dante closed the ledger carefully. Then tomorrow we stop following everyone else's plan. If my father wrote that address, I am going there, I said. Dante looked at the faint handwriting beneath the lamp, then at me. I know. It was 7:52 when we left the Midtown apartment. Morning had turned Manhattan silver and pale, the sidewalks filling with delivery trucks, coffee cups, and people whose biggest concern was getting to work on time. Nolan drove while Dante sat beside me in the back. Nobody mentioned the bank appointment at 9. We were letting that plan remain exactly where whoever was watching expected it to be. At 8:26, we stopped outside a narrow office building on Pearl Street. No Moretti sign, just an old brass directory beside the entrance. I scanned the names until I found Suite 4B. That was my father's company name before he started consulting. Did he keep an office here? Not that I knew. Suite 4B contained one desk, 3 filing cabinets, and a layer of dust that suggested nobody had worked there in years. On the desk sat an old-fashioned document scanner and a sealed envelope addressed to me. My hands shook when I opened it. Inside was a letter in Arthur's handwriting. Mara, if you are reading this, someone finally went looking for the wrong thing. The box at the bank contains copies. What matters is what cannot be quietly removed. Nolan crossed to the filing cabinet and opened the top drawer. The third contained a small external drive taped beneath the metal frame. Your father understood redundancy, Dante said. The screen took forever to wake. Hundreds of scanned invoices. Audit notes. Arthur had preserved everything digitally, with dates showing when each document had been received. This proves the sequence, Nolan said after opening several files. Victor approved the vendor structure first. Graham authorized the transfers afterward. Dante leaned over the desk. And my father? One email appeared from Salvatore Moretti to Graham, dated 8 years earlier. Why has the independent audit been delayed? I want the complete report on my desk by Friday. His shoulders lowered almost imperceptibly. He did not know. Not yet, I said. Another email showed Graham promising the report was incomplete. Then Victor instructed Graham privately to delay it. Arthur had copied both communications into his archive. Graham lied, Dante said. Yes. But Victor directed it. Yes. The evidence was cleaner than the ledger. Small things telling the truth. Then I found a folder labeled Mara. There was only one file. A letter from my father. Sweetheart, if this ever reaches you, remember that evidence is not revenge. Truth is useful only when it stops the lie from hurting someone else. Do not let powerful men convince you that justice and punishment are the same thing. Dante remained silent beside me. He knew I would be angry. I whispered, He knew you. A knock sounded. Nolan moved toward it, checked through the narrow glass panel, then looked at Dante. Graham. Alone. Yes. Graham entered looking 20 years older than he had at the dinner. Arthur was a better man than I was. That does not fix anything. No, Victor knows about this office. How? Because I told him about it 8 years ago. I did not know Arthur had moved the originals here. Why come now? Graham placed a flash drive on the desk. Because Arthur was missing one thing. What? Victor's instructions to me, recorded meetings. You had proof for 8 years. Yes. And said nothing. Yes. I told myself exposing Victor would destroy the foundation, your father's reputation, everything we built. Dante Moretti had been betrayed by the man he trusted, and everyone expected punishment. Dante, I said quietly, if you make this about what Graham deserves, Victor gets to make the story about you. He betrayed my father. Then let the truth prove it. I touched Arthur's letter. Power is not proving you can destroy someone. Sometimes it is proving you do not have to. Dante stepped back. Nolan, duplicate everything. Send one complete set to independent counsel and one to the foundation's outside auditors. Graham looked stunned. Dante, you are going to testify to every signature, every delay, every lie, Dante said. You do not get protection from the truth, but you can tell it. My phone vibrated. Victor messaged, you have documents that belong to me. Another message followed. Bring them to the bank at 9, or the Moretti name falls with mine. Dante stared at the message, then at Arthur's files already being copied. He still thinks the evidence is in the safe deposit box, I said. Good. He removed the false cufflink. which Nolan had sealed in a small evidence pouch the night before, and placed it beside Arthur's letter. For the first time tonight, Victor believes something that is not true. We only needed to let him walk into the story he had written for us, while the real evidence traveled somewhere he could no longer control. At 8:53, the auditors confirmed receipt. At 8:55, Dante's phone rang. "Your choice," I said. "Dante, we need to settle this privately." Dante looked at Arthur's letter, then at Graham, then finally at me. "No, Victor," he said calmly. "That is how this survived 8 years." "No, Victor," Dante said calmly. "That is how this survived 8 years." The silence on the phone lasted long enough for me to hear the old computer humming beside Arthur's files. "You have no idea what you are doing." "I finally do. Those records implicate your organization. Then my organization answers for whatever the records prove. Your father would never have allowed that." Dante's expression changed, but his voice did not. "My father ordered the audit you buried. Where are the documents?" "Beyond your control." Just a quiet click, and somehow that felt more final than anything else could have. By noon, Arthur's archive had been delivered to independent attorneys and outside auditors. Graham gave a recorded statement explaining the transfers, the false credentials, and the years he had spent helping Victor conceal the truth. The safe deposit box remained unopened until counsel could document everything properly. When it was finally examined 2 days later, it contained exactly what my father had promised: copies. Victor had spent 8 years chasing paper while Arthur had hidden the truth in places no single person could erase. The Moretti Community Trust announced an independent review. Several questionable projects were suspended. Graham resigned and agreed to cooperate fully. Victor disappeared from the polished rooms where his name had once opened every door, not because Dante made him disappear, but because signatures, timestamps, recordings, and bank records left him nowhere comfortable to hide from accountability. 3 weeks later, I was back at the Bellwether. Same aching feet after 8 hours. Same Celeste reminding everyone that water glasses should never fall below half full. Arthur's name had been cleared of every suggestion that he participated in the missing funds. The foundation created a compliance scholarship in his honor, although I made Dante remove the Moretti name from it. He complained for exactly 11 seconds. But I did not quit my job. That would have made the wrong lesson out of everything. My father had spent his life teaching me that dignity did not become more valuable when rich people finally noticed it. On a rainy Thursday evening, Celeste appeared beside the service station with an expression I recognized immediately. "Table 12. What about it? Your customer has been waiting 15 minutes. Then another server can take him. He specifically requested the most observant waitress in Manhattan." Of course he did. No circle of men in tailored suits. Just Dante, a cup of coffee, and 2 empty chairs. "Mr. Moretti," I said professionally. "Miss Ellison, have you decided what you want?" I thought I would begin with coffee. "You already have coffee." He looked down at the cup as though this were surprising information. "Then apparently I am doing badly." That was when I saw his wrists. His left cufflink was black onyx framed in silver. His right cufflink was plain silver. He was terrible at it. "You did that on purpose." "Did what?" "Your cufflinks." "Something wrong with them?" "They do not match." "Interesting. You run an organization with hundreds of employees, but apparently nobody owns a mirror. I wanted to see how long it took you." 7 seconds. 6. "Absolutely not. I started counting when you reached the table." "That is cheating." "That sounds like something a person who lost would say." I tried not to smile and failed. Dante smiled too. No performance. No hidden microphone. No reason to pretend. "How is Graham?" "Cooperating." "And Victor?" "His attorneys are doing considerably more talking than he is." "Good. How are you?" It was such a simple question. My father had taught me how meaningless that word could be. "Better," I said. "Still angry sometimes." "Better is enough. For now." "For now. Anything else?" "Dinner," he said, "when you are not working." "Is that an order?" "I have learned better." "A request." Very carefully phrased. A choice offered and returned. He could walk into a room and make everyone watch him. But love, I eventually learned, begins somewhere quieter. It begins when someone sees you clearly and still gives you the freedom to choose whether you stay.